Dev has always been an avid traveler, and in spite of a busy schedule, developed huge enthusiasm for outdoor sketching and writing diaries about various places of our country for the last 20 years, thus resulting in 2 books that on those travelogues till date. He, apart from all this, associates regularly with cartoon drawing courses, conducting workshops and giving lectures, virtual or otherwise, at major institutions of visual art, both in Kolkata and other cities of India. 100 years celebration. This is a 100th year birth centenary of Satyajit Ray. This is a 100-year celebration of Satyajit Ray that we are observing right now. And we are observing it on a scale that was not done till now by anyone so far in India. This is the first session of the next few sessions that will be on, this session will be on illustration, followed by a session on music of Satyajit Ray. And we are happy to say that will happen in the first week of August. And so saying thus, I would like to hand over the phone to the session to Professor Devashish Dev for the rest of the session. Thank you very much. Over to you, Devashish. The most heartiest welcome from PKP on behalf of everyone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Angshuman. Good evening, everybody. A very good evening. And a big thanks to VKP also for giving me this opportunity to come forward and conduct this session, which deals with none other than Satyajit Ray, which coincides with his centenary year, birth centenary year. And in this session, I'm going to give a brief account, but the time is very short, a brief account of Mr. Ray's illustrative works, along with a slideshow presentation, which will itself reveal the emergence and how Satyajit reached a pinnacle of creative brilliance as an illustrator. Although he is regarded as one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, and most of his celluloid creations are undoubtedly masterpieces, which never cease to fascinate film buffs all over the world, even after 30 years of his death. Apart from aesthetic brilliance, they have a sustaining quality in terms of human appeal. Yet, discussing Ray with his films only can be gross injustice to a true versatile genius like him. We must also consider and must not overlook his contribution in the world of graphic design, which was no less remarkable, especially in the field of illustration. His achievement was extraordinary. Today, I am going to show a series of his illustrations from the beginning of his career till one of his last days. So let's have a look at this first illustration, which can we have the first illustration, please? No, I'm talking about the illustration. This part is over. Now we'll go for, yes. Now we start off with this particular illustration, which was one of his earliest. As you can see, it is in It is in 1943. And it's a funny story he illustrated for a children's magazine called Mochak, a story written for the young adults. And you can find that even a beginner like Satyajit Ray, he dealt with so many characters, all different, the facial expressions and the costumes, and it was so varied, the characterizations. So this is how he started his career. Now let's have the second one. Yes. Now, as Angshuman was telling, that after he passed out from Kala Bhavan, he came out from Kala Bhavan. He went there to take a course in painting, in art, Kala Bhavan in Shantiniketan. But after he left Shantiniketan, he didn't actually complete his total his course. In the middle, he came back to Kolkata. He didn't complete his course, but anyway, he learned a lot from his teachers. Some of them are legendary ones, like Nandolal Bose, Binod Bihari Mukherjee, and Ram Kinkar Beij. So he actually went to Shantiniketan not to learn commercial art. He wanted to become a commercial artist. He wanted to become an illustrator. But he went to Shantiniketan to learn the traditional form of Indian art. So that is actually his goal. That was his goal. So he wanted to learn the real the essence of our Indian art. And he came back and he wanted to use those, the forms, the typical Indianness in the art into his drawings, his illustrations, all sorts of concepts, what he was trying to project. So this is a very, in fact, very interesting revelation of how he managed to use Indianness. He managed to bring Indianness into his illustration. This is from a storybook called Cheese Doll, written by Abanindranath. And this, the extremely popular folk tale, which where Satyajit Ray adapted all sorts of Bengal folk motifs like earthen huts, wooden horses, and all sorts of decorative patterns. We'll go for the next visual, which is also from the same book, Kirer Putul. And you can see this Moyurpongki, the boat with the peacock design. And you see that these are typical forms which he used to illustrate a story which deals with a typical our Indian folk, the essence, the story, the subject. Now let's go for another one. And can you change it in the next one? Can you bring the next one first? Yeah. Now this is also a illustration, 3 illustrations from a book written by, once again, by Abanindranath. And this is the story is based on Rajasthan's folk tales, and these are actually the story in Bengali was known as Raj Kahini. You can find out Raj is the king, the royal, and Kahini means story. So all the stories were revolving around the kings, the queens, and all sorts of the fights and the battles and romance. And Satyajit Ray once he in fact, while illustrating this stories, he adapted very intelligently. He adapted the delicate forms of, you can find out the Rajput miniature forms, which that give the essence of that gharana, the Rajput gharana. You can find out this the miniatures. Can you get back to the earlier one? So see these, no, these are a few examples of typical Rajput miniatures, from where actually Satyajit Ray imbibed the forms, the designs, the mood into his Rajkaini illustrations. The next one is again a storybook. Yes, and this is known as, the storybook is known as Bohurupi, written by his own father. Now, actually, he was working for a publication called Signet Press, and they were publishing high quality produced books. You see, they were very well designed, very well printed, and they made a big name in among the readers. It is during the 50s when Satyajit Ray was only a professional illustrator, a professional graphic artist, before he joined films. So this is the period before his films, and he was totally a professional artist. Now this is again Satyajit, and you see how he was equally at ease with comic drawings, and you see the body language, the moods, the expressions. So he could play both with the traditional kind of drawings and then comic drawings also. The next one would again, the next one, please. These are, see, again another book, a comic, the poems, funny poems, you see, and absurd poems, written by his own father, Sukumar Rai. And here also he deals with characters which are, essentially comical. So he was, in fact, he was very, he was making quite a name, you see, he was getting more and more famous gradually with this kind of illustrative books he was doing for Signet Press, and he made quite a name for himself. Now, let's have the next one, please. And this one is again from that poem, this absurd rhyme book, Khai Khai, with gluttons. Now can shift to the next one also. Yes, again, see, he's doing illustration for another book, which is basically based on rural Bengal. And here, he, with the help of just black and white drawings, he was portraying the typical mood, the nature of a Bengal village and the people. Now, this is where actually his mentor, his teacher, Nandalal Bose, was very much, in the background. He was there, Satyajit Ray straight away adopted. The next one, please, the next visual. Yes. See, this is the illustration of Nandalal Bose, illustrious and famous artist, the famous guru of Indian art. So this is the style he adapted, Satyajit adapted for the book, the previous book by Vibhuti Bhushan. Can you get back to this illustration, please? The previous one. Now, if you think about the illustrations, the book is based on Vibhuti Bhushan's novel, Song of the Road, or Pather Pachali. Now, while he was doing this, there were plenty of illustrations, 10, 12 illustrations in this book. While he was doing these illustrations in the year 1945, he got some kind of, urge. And he was, some kind of, he was very much inspired to do a film someday on this theme. And this was this happened actually after 10 years in 1955. His very first film was based on this story, this book, and the rest was history. Now we'll get back to yes. No, the next one, please. Yeah. Now, this was one of his earliest color illustrations where he used that photogravure method. And this is also, a book on children's, learning alphabets, the first book of reading. So this is how he was adapting. Again, this is a boat, a typical Indian boat. And this is how he's adapting the forms, the typical indigenous forms. And the next one. Now, these are these are very catchy for the children. And he knew he had the concept, the idea that how he could really make the illustrations appealing for the children, for the young readers, the beginners. So see here, he was so immaculate. The drawing was so perfect, and this contained there are plenty of illustrations, and he did for this particular book, where he really showed his mettle. Now let's go for. Now let's show an illustration which he did for an advertisement. If you see it, I mean, I don't know, in a small screen, it's very difficult to find out that the detailing in this illustration, which was one of Satyajit's hallmark, going for details, whatever the frame, whatever the subject, whatever the visual, and he chose. This is a ad for, this was way back in 1949, and this was an ad for a tablet for this malaria, to prevent malaria. And this is where he shows an entire family all gathered together in a room, in the living room or the drawing room, and they are all served with a malaria, this thing, a tablet, each one having it to prevent. And see all the characters. And this is particularly a westernized aristocrat Bengali family. And you can find out how meticulous Satyajit Ray was in creating the details, the characters, even the daughter, the pompous daughter, almost hanging on the sofa, and the decor, all the the typical the grandfather clock and the skin of the tiger skin, all are these props. The properties are very much authentic, and brings an authenticity to the visual, to the story, to the theme of the ad. So this is Satyajit himself later on in an interview says, he remarked about this ad as one of the, it's very filmic. So that was how he was. There's a question. And what was the question? Can I have it once again? Somebody says, I can't understand. Can you repeat the question, please? Or we'll go back to the demonstration.
We'll go back to the session, sir.
Okay.
We will come back to the questions at the end.
No, actually, I don't mind having questions, because people might forget what the question you wanted to ask. See, if somebody wants to ask their own.
One question.
Yes.
Which has come as Mango Seed Flute. Who did this creation and why they did? So that is only one question which came from Sudhashri. But Mango Seed Flute, I'm not sure.
Yes, actually,
The Amati.
What was the problem of understanding? This was the name of the book. It's translated into English. The original name was Am Atir Bhepu. Bhepu means flute. Am means mango, and Ati is the seed. Okay. So actually, these days, our urban children, they won't understand actually what sort of object it could be. You see, but if you are you eat mango, then you have idea of the seed, how the seed looks like, and then if you make a hole in the seed and you can blow, then it will make a sound like, so that is a kind of improvisation of a flute, you see. So I think that was the question.
Yes, sir. That is the question. Now,
Yes.
that is the only question which we have got so far.
I know. There could be some confusion for urban people. What sort of thing that was.
Sure.
Okay.
We'll go ahead, sir. Yeah.
Sure. Now, after this, see, this was in 1949, and almost after this, this period, there was a gap. Why? Because he got involved himself into filmmaking. So this was a cut-off time for his career. The early phase was when he was, working completely and entirely devoted into illustrations and graphic design. But from now on, we will find Satyajit Ray, he is actually, sharing his time both for his films and his graphic art. And that was one of the busiest time he could have. And that continued till his death. So it's very interesting to find that these illustrations were done when Satyajit was totally busy with his films. But then also he could find out time to do illustrations. Now, I will start off with a magazine which was originally founded by Satyajit's grandfather, Upendra Kishore Rai Chaudhuri. Yes. And we can come back to Sandesh. Yes. Now, this is Sandesh in Bengali. Sandesh this is the cover of the very first issue of Sandesh magazine, which was revived by Satyajit Ray in the year 1961. He was totally busy, and by that time he already gained international fame in 1961. But in spite of that, he was so actually sentimental about Sandesh, right? Sandesh has two meanings. In Hindi, Sandesh, it means news. And in Bangla, Sandesh means sweet meat. Like Rasgulla, we have another very popular sweet called Sandesh. So this is actually the word which attracts the children, you see. So this is a double meaning word. Now you see, this is the very first cover which Satyajit Ray illustrated himself. And here he actually played with the type. Can you make out that what exactly is it's written there? In place of Sandesh, what can you find out? It's a form of a horse, isn't it? I think it's quite clear.
Yes,
so
sir.
Yeah, and this is what we call pictography, creating a form with the help of letters. So this is Satyajit Ray. It's a horse. It's not dragon. Okay, a horse with one leg folded, and in fact later on you will find that he's played with this particular three types Sandesh and created an elephant also. And he could do this very magically. He was so deft. He was so confident. He's so controlled in applying letterings, calligraphy. He was one of the best calligraphers in Bengal, you see, if not the best till date. So this will continue with many more Shondesh covers later on. He used to change the covers regularly. Can we have the next visual, please? Now see, delightful covers, and see the characters, the fish, and then the demon coming out from the that kettle, the typical Arabian Night story. And see, even the butterfly is so sweet, so catchy, so lively. And now we gradually come to that phase of Satyajit Ray when he was playing with characters, with animals. Yes, thank you. With animals, and so easy, with full at ease, and all are devoted reader of Shondesh. You can make out. See, all are enchanted with Shondesh. They're happy, and they're all reading. They're all involved. Let's have another set of covers. The next one, please.
It's changed, sir. It's
Yeah, you see, this are all different covers drawn in different years. The tiger is, see, this is what no, don't change, please. See, these are all feel good, the feel good visuals. The tiger, he's not attacking. Tiger is eager to, he's peeping and trying to, read a few lines from the magazine itself. And then the king and the robo, all are involved with Shondesh. This is what Satyajit's, he wanted to, this was his way of, portraying the children, the world of the children. The enjoyment of reading. Now, if you go to, yes, there are many more covers. I know the time is very short, so we were, doing it very, we are cutting short actually. He did at least 20-25 covers, at least. I have got all the sets. If you want to, want to have a look at them, I can send you. You can enjoy. Now let's have the next set of illustrations one by one. Now this is the illustrations he started doing for Shondesh. Once the Shondesh was out, it started getting published regularly every month. He got involved in this magazine. He was a committed illustrator. And he, his full energy into Shondesh and started. See, this is a series of illustrations he did for a same story series. You see, and you can find the style, how he was varying his styles. Go one from one to another. Next one. Yeah, you'll find these are the same story series, but for every story, Satyajit is, he is innovating from one style to another. Next one. See the style changing from one to another. Next one. How he could really bring variety was unbelievable, actually, to us till date. We we feel absolutely speechless when we go through these illustrations. It is almost impossible, and you have to keep in mind that it was not his full-time job at that moment. He was making those those masterpieces. He's making either Charulata, Gupi and Bhagavan, or Ratri, or Shatranj Ke Khiladi. He's making those masterpieces one after another. And we all know that how much involvement one needs to make a film. But in spite of that, he was innovating himself. It was not that he was just, passing off. Let's have another one. He was in full control. Yes, they are all written for Sandesh. And at that time, it was early 1960s when he was only involved with Sandesh as an illustrator. He was no more with advertising agency. He was no more with any other publication. But you see, his world will start broadening. His illustrative career will start, expanding in a particular way, a particular reason, because he himself started writing stories for children. So the next one, you see, he created a character called Professor Shonku. And see, this is again a particular kind of good evening. Now, this Shonku, this is Shonku in Bengali. Now, this is another instant of a high quality, exceptional quality of. This was 1965. It's written there. It was in 1965 that he first wrote a story on Professor Shonku, more or less a madcap scientist, but then gradually he becomes smart, and then there's a series of stories. Yeah. And see, he has used, instead of the types, the letters, what he has used all the instruments, the laboratory instruments, like retorts and test tubes and set squares. So this is separate exam for this. Okay. Yeah. This is a very very interesting, one of the greatest pictography example. One of the finest example of pictography. Now, this Shonku became a regular feature, and he was writing Shonku stories regularly for Sandesh and parallelly illustrating for them, for each stories. The next one will show the difference, illustrations for different stories, Shonku stories. Can I have the next one? See, all black and white illustrations, but see the excitement, the drama, the suspense packed in all these visions, all these visuals, and very, very much powerful, realistic styles. And he was so controlled in dealing with anatomy. These are also, some examples, very few examples of illustrations that he did. He did for Sandesh itself. He illustrated at least 5,000 illustrations. He did at least 5,000 illustrations throughout his life. Now, this is another character he invented, he created. I think you are more familiar with this character, Feluda the Sleuth, because this Feluda stories are all almost translated into English. And Feluda is one of the most loved, most popular fictional character in Bengal, in Bengali literature. Mind that. So this was a very first illustration where this is the very first story. And this, yeah, now these are the stories. Now he was so involved with Feluda. We all, in fact, we treat Feluda as Satyajit's alter ego. You see, he was so much, involved, so much dedicated, and he, in fact, Feluda and Satyajit was very much, has that common factors in their own nature and character. See, another Feluda illustration. Turmoil in Gangtok. Now, this is another illustration for Gangtok, turmoil in Gangtok. Now, this is a very special kind of visual that he is a typical Satyajit's, style that he established. This is a typical filmic frame. Why? Because it's as if somebody is looking through a camera, and the character closest to the camera is almost out of focus, and the person in gray, little hazy, he was standing within the fog, you see, mixed up in the fog. So see, automatically the focus falls on this character, and the character in the mid shot is Feluda, little more in focus, because his hair is black. So we see, this is how a composition is made. Satyajit is, the placement and the perspective. These are all very interesting, very scientifically done. So, and then typically Satyajit's innovation. These are all Feluda illustrations, but see, yeah, these are for other stories. One is the Golden Fortress. See, the one at the bottom. And here also he created a style which actually shows the story revolves around Rajasthan. You see, Rajasthan and the sand dunes and all sorts of very much close to this desert and Jaisalmer, places like this, and the heat, the strong blazing sun, and the shadow, it's obvious in the illustration. Now, this was in 1975. Apparently it's a very simple illustration. It's a short story written by Chekhov. It was translated in Bengali. Its name is Vanka, a Russian story originally written by Anton Chekhov. And well, this question is not very clear. Can you all see me? I can't see
sir,
in that.
Yes, sir. We can see you. So what is the question?
No, can you make me visible for me?
It is visible, sir. You are visible.
Oh, but I can't see myself.
1 minute.
Yeah. Okay.
Spotlighting for everybody.
Yeah. Now that's okay.
Yeah.
See, Vanka was a 9-year-old boy. He was actually he didn't have any parents. See, and he was a very sad life. He was staying with a cobbler, and he treated him brutally. And this story revolves, a short story, and this is where actually he is writing a letter. to his grandfather. He thinks that there is a person who is his grandfather staying in Moscow. And he wants to communicate with that grandfather of his, who he thinks, he dreams that someday his grandfather will come and take him away from the drudgery. So this is all the story is. It's a very touching story, very touching story. And we all know that this grandfather, this person would never come, and his drudgery will never end, and it will continue till his death. I mean, he has a very, very bleak, black future. So in this particular illustration, what we see is a very diametrically opposite two object. One is the candle in front of Vanka and the shadow. Now, the shadow is obvious. The candle, because of the light, the shadow will definitely come. Now, if we see the shadow, if we notice it very closely, see, the shadow looks like an old man. So that is actually shows the future of what is there in future for Vanka. As if he's a stoopy old man and almost, in the last stage of his life. He's lost, he's completely defeated. And there is the candle, which is a symbol of hope. So this is the contrast was brilliantly executed in this illustration. So that way, this illustration is very significant in Satyajit's career. According to me, I think it's one of his best creations as an illustrator. Now the next illustrations are, now this was not for Sandesh. These were all for Anandamela, another very colorful and mainstream magazine for children, which became very popular during the 70s, 80s, 90s, and still it draws a lot of readers every year, every issue. So this is a story about a person. The name you can make out, Barin Bhomik's disorder, mental disorder. Why? Because this character is a kleptomaniac. You have heard of this. I'm talking about the students. The word kleptomaniac. Can you make out what that means? Somebody who steals somebody else's object without rhyme or reason, without any, outside his, his demand, just for the sake of it. It is a particular illness of a person. For nothing, for no reason, somebody steals others' object. That is what you call kleptomaniac. So this Barin Bhomik was also a kleptomaniac, and this story is very much psychological, very much psychological, full of tension. This Barin Bhomik once stolen the man with another man's timepiece. So these are, now Satyajit was handling the colors very intelligently, very innovatively, very imaginatively. And see the tension in the eyes of Barin. So this is for you to understand that the stylization, how you bring stylization into an illustration. Now, for Anandamela, he was regularly writing Shonku stories and becoming very popular. Next illustration, yes, one sec, which makes everything attractive for the person who has been affected. Which, okay, but there is stealing. I mean, you have the urge to steal, and actually he picks up this thing. He put it in his pocket and it goes away. That is that is the main objective of kleptomania. To taking away, to steal others' belongings, just for fun, or by habit. You see. See now, Satyajit is developing into this. Illustrations are taking different shapes, and he is getting more, he's getting into thrillers, typical thrillers, and spectacular, compositions with, we actually a large canvas. He's getting more space to do illustrations than before, and the styles are very dashing. You see. And a lot of tension, a lot of thrill, adventure stories. Next one, please. See again, he could bring out the typical photographic effect in his drawings.
So there's a doubt whether these illustrations are digital or is it painted?
No digital. He never handled any digital kind of what do you call he never touched computer. He all did by hand.
Understood, sir.
No digital technology, never, because he died in 1992. See, so at that time nobody knew what Photoshop was. So it's there is a lot of debate whether Satyajit Ray would have used Photoshop, would have gone for a digital what do you call this process. We all go for debating, you see, argument. But I don't know whether he would have been very comfortable with digital drawings or not. But he was not averse to modern techniques. No, he have adapted so many times the modern, but we don't actually know what would have happened.
You can continue, sir.
Yes, I met Satyajit Ray when I was almost in the very first step I took into illustrating, and I joined Shondesh. I was allowed to do illustrations for Shondesh. And then the relation is still there. I still work for Shondesh. And Satyajit Ray was very active till then. But in 1983, he suffered a heart attack. That was very severe. And after that, he became very ill. He couldn't make more films. He only made 3 films. And he was almost always, in bed, either going to a nursing home, etc. So what happened was, by that time, I was a beginner. So I never had that opportunity to sit and discuss at length with him. That's very unfortunate for me that I didn't get that opportunity. I was not, matured enough to sit across the table and discuss. Otherwise, he was very, that way, he was very amiable. He accepted people, and he accepted all sorts of, ideas and discussions. He appreciated. But I couldn't be one of them, you see, in that team. Let's push off to another one, see. Now, this is a very interesting composition. If somebody wants to become an illustrator, this is a very good guide that how you would create a drama, a particular, a situation. See, this is a person, the villain, of course, you can make out. He is pointing his revolver at Shonku. It's a Shonku with the red bag. And he actually fires the revolver. But fortunately, it misses Shonku. So that proves that this man was a little away from he was in a distance, so that he couldn't aim properly. So that is why Satyajit didn't draw the person itself, only the gun, because he wanted to show the distance only between the gun and Shonku. If he would have drawn the man to the full length of him, then he had to shift Shonku a little farther, and then they would become very small for an illustration. for identification. And here the gunshot is more important than anything else. The man is not very important, not very relevant. Only the gunshot and the Shonku's attitude, the way he's facing the man. So this is a very interesting composition, which again flows into another illustration. We'll see the next one. Instead of revolver, you have a knife, and this is this is also a story written by Satyajit Ray. The story, his name is Photik Chand, name of a young boy who was actually met with an accident, and he loses his memory, and then he actually meets a juggler. The juggler keeps him in his house without knowing. He died when he was 70 years old. And no. Keep this. See, here also, the knife is very important. That is the main, that's the center of attraction, the center point. And that is why the entire focus is on the knife itself. So, see, there's a composition. There are very interesting way of making composition. And Satyajit Ray used all sorts of filmic, frames. These are all filmic frames. Now, let's go to the next two illustrations, which are from different stories and Feluda. Next one, please. Yeah. See, I was talking about the distance and the focus. Now you can make out that how even these two people standing closest to the camera and going out of focus, because the focus has to be on the brown shib's cottage, or on the right hand side the person, the villain with the torch and revolver. So these two people are insignificant. These two characters are insignificant. In the middle, this boy is insignificant. The important factor, the important form, the important object is the one which the boy is looking at in the distance. So this is a very interesting. We have all, imitated from time to time, tried to imitate, tried to copy, tried to understand and imbibe these kind of forms, this kind of compositions in our illustrations. These are very catchy, you see, very catchy, very what do you call, very telling, actually, very verbal, extremely vocal. Now let's the next one. Yes, next one, please. This is one of his last phase of his life, and he was doing. But this is very surprising that he still had that quality, that the strength, the control of nib, and this is at midnight. Something happening in the midnight in a studio of a painter, and see how the shadows and the light, the source of light is created. He could just make like a black and white photograph, because he knew the technique, the science of light and shade, the geometry, the pattern. He knew it so well that he could create it in any form, in any angle, in any mood. We have come almost to the last phase of just a couple of illustrations left. One is his very last illustration for Shonku, Golden Leaf, Shonno Purni. And incidentally, this character with a coat is Shonku himself in his younger days. Actually, the very last story of Shonku series was the beginning of Shonku and his, how he, he joined college, he passed out, and then how he became a inventor. So this is very ironic. That is very last Shonku is his very first, incidents. Now we'll show a very lighter mood of Satyajit Ray where he was doing comics. And I think it's nothing to explain. You can make out the fun, the simple, humor, very simple, down to earth humor, nothing complex about it. The next one. Yeah, again this he did for covers of Shondesh, you see, and the years are mentioned. So there we come to an end of this slide projection, and now I'm expecting questions from you, if there are any.
Okay. There is one or two questions in the chat box. Sir, did he only write Hindi stories or in English as well on Satyajit Ray?
No, he never wrote anything in English or in Hindi. He didn't know Hindi very well, and he never tried. He wrote a lot of essays in English, plenty of essays in English, but not stories. His very first two stories in his life was in English, true, but that was first and last. But his stories are extensively translated into English, as far as I know. I don't know if other languages. Hindi maybe kuch hua hai, but I don't know. Well, I think you should go and see Golden Fortress or Sonar Killa. You would love. If you have this subtitles, you will definitely enjoy Sonar Killa. You will definitely enjoy Joy Baba Felunath. These two are based on Feluda stories, you see, detective stories, crime thrillers, like. So I think if you want to start watching Satyajit films, these two would be ideal.
Great, sir. So there is a few more questions which has come now.
Sure.
So I've heard, this is from Aditi. I've heard that Satyajit Ray did many illustrations for each scene of his film, which were later shot. Is it true?
Yes. Actually, he used to keep a diary sort of thing, exercise book kind of a thing, where he used to jot and scribble everything, scene by scene, all the costumes, the characters, the facial expressions, everything. And we used to call it, the red color, Kheror Khata. You see, Khata means book, exercise book. And these, for each film, used to have two exercise book, and packed with these kind of, scribbles, drawings, letterings, all used for films, for each film. And of course, he used to have that we call that small drawings, you see, storyboards. So he essentially, he perpetually developed those storyboards for the help of camera settings and angles and light and shades and framings. That helped him a lot, and he was accustomed. He was he had habitually doing this for every films.
There is one Master Ganesh from Poneri, who has said that he has drawn Satyajit Ray. Can he show it? Ganesh, can you switch on your video and show it? Ganesh?
Yes, sir. 1 minute. 1 minute, sir.
Yeah. So meanwhile, we will answer there's another question, sir.
Mm-hmm.
What was the challenges for Sri Satyajit Ray, sir, while he was shifting to the films from illustration? Oh, wow. That's the drawing.
There was no challenge, absolutely no challenge for him, because when he was doing films and illustrating at the same time, he was not very conscious about it. He do it absolutely tirelessly, and he never thought that he was actually, illustration was his actually his breathing space. Whenever he found time, he used to write stories, he used to do illustrations, and he used to enjoy them. And there were so many occasions where you will find there's illustrations, and some of his films frames are almost similar, and they were juxtaposed very interestingly, you see, in so many illustrations. Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah, there's a drawing.
Very
which is
nicely
very
done, Ganesh.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Sagaran, do you have
Welcome,
any
sir.
questions?
Yeah, actually, Sir Michael Sudhakaran,
Yes.
sir, when Mr. Ray started illustration, the printing technology in India was in a very nascent stage. That was the much before the offset printing was introduced. Those days, it was very difficult to have the shades and colors and all that. So how did he overcome that limitation through his drawings? And how it evolved along with the improvement of the development in the printing technology, sir?
Yeah, this is a very good question, very pertinent. Actually, when we see from today's point of view, we think that they were in a very difficult position because they did never had that, never had those things. But at that time, they never realized that they were short of anything, you see, and they could, improvise things accordingly. If you don't have half-tone facilities, you go for drawings, you go for crisscross drawings and modulations. In line drawing, you can bring the effect of half-tone, as we saw in Professor Shonku illustrations. You won't be able to make out that the effect was done only in black and white, only in line. There was no tone, absolutely. So Satyajit Ray was, when he started his career as an illustrator and continued for a long time, he never bothered because, and later on also, he actually, he was always, mentioning the thing. He was very particular that color was not very important in illustration. Color can't change everything, you see. Color can't change the quality of an illustration. It can give you some advantage, and that was, he was very particular about it. He was very confident about it, that and his illustrations were enjoyable, were delightful in spite of the lack of colors, because he could handle the drawing so deftly, so strongly, and so attractive was his compositions that we never bothered to find out or to realize that they were not in color or in half tone. So that is something the illustrators of that period, they trained themselves, to take up the challenge. So that is that.
And he used the potential of typography and calligraphy as well, as you had shown in that horse image.
Actually, those mechanical types were, not very easily available. They were not developed properly, especially in Bengal. The alphabets, the types were very drab. If you not only in illustration, if you see his titles in films, perhaps you won't be able to read it out, but you would be able to enjoy the beauty of them and the aesthetics. Like in the film called Aranya Drinratri, The Days and Night in Forest, he created a new typeface, you see, a typical new typeface to show that the thickness of the type through which you show that it's a running car and the jungles, as if you were watching the jungle through the window of a car. I have written in my book, there's a book on Satyajit Ray's graphic design, where I have elucidated everything, you see, like this. He adapted for a film called Kanchanjunga. He adopted the Tibetan script and brought it into Bengali. just to give that essence of that the hill station and the characters and all these kind of the mood. So that was you have to be innovative. You have to be always. You have to change. What is the question? When did he start his journey of movies and illustrations? Well, illustration was much before that. You see, when he passed out from his school, he always wanted to become an illustrator and graphic design. He never thought that he will any day he will make a film. He was a film buff. He was a serious film buff. He started Calcutta Film Society in India, in Kolkata, along with his friends. But he never had any idea, any plan to make films. So initially, he took a training in art in Shantiniketan, came back to Kolkata, joined an advertising agency, and parallelly started doing illustrations for a very leading publication house called Signet Press. And that continued for 10, 12 years before he, winded up everything and went into films. Is that clear now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So there's another message from Mr. Saumik. So Mr. Debashish Deb is a very well-known and accomplished illustrator himself, who influenced his following generations of illustrators. My question is, which aspect of Satyajit Ray as an illustrator influenced Mr. Deb when he was emerging as a young illustrator? The question is to you, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, as an emerging illustrator, my problem was that I could not develop my own typical style, where people will say, okay, this is a very, his own style, his own thoughts. I was imitating almost every illustrator at that time. I was very fond of all kind of illustrations, and I was, imitating. I was just lifting there. Satyajit was one of them. I enjoyed the compositions, you see, very filmic frames, one from behind and one facing, and these the drawings. And I enjoyed of course, I could not do it myself because I was not very, apt about it, not very trained, not very experienced, not very matured at all. But then I was understanding, I was getting into it, that his compositions was very different from others, very special, very special in the sense that he created, keeping the film shots in his mind, the frames, the camera in his mind, even the light and shades, and of course his minimization. That is his actually main strength, you see, or the main characteristic. Everywhere he was very he never overdid anything. He never made it crowded. He was doing it in a very limited way, in a short way, and he could manage that way. In very few words, he could be very vocal. He could manage to say a lot of things. So that is a typical, with very few lines, he could be very descriptive. With the help of very few strokes, he could bring out a life. He could bring out that emotion. So that was Satyajit Ray. He was always limiting himself, not overdoing in any sense.
Okay.
I think we have come to the end of the session now.
Yeah, Srinath, if you don't mind, I have a question, please.
Please.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and ask this question and you can wind up. I guess it's very curious. I was very curious about one thing, like simultaneously we see this sudden, focusing on cinematic apparatus, cinematic devices in Ray's films, Ray's graphic works. when Feluda comes in, basically the detective stories, and Professor Shonku, the adventure stories, comes in basically, because before that we see some kind of flat illustrations which are lateral to the paper position. Now, do you have an observation on that? Because we also see certain camera cinematic aspects which you pointed out, of course, the fogginess, the distances, the blocking, etc., and the texture. And with minimum material like usage, like sometimes a charcoal or a pastel being rubbed over a coat to create a texture, and it's always purposive, like to bring in the object in focus. And also sometimes with linearity, mere change of the depth of the felt pen, he had been doing that. Any kind of, can you elucidate on that a little bit in 1 or 2 lines, please?
You have understood Satyajit Ray very well, and that is apparent, that's evident. I have nothing much to say about that, technicalities. But I would point out one thing, why he took up this style, why he was doing a different, he was, playing with different forms and different, of course, the tools, the colors, and like you're talking about. The reason being that before Shonku stories, before Feluda stories, he was dealing with different kind of subjects. He never took up this serious thrillers kind of stories before. You see, he was dealing with mostly with either folk tales or simple social background, or what do you call, funny stories, these kind of things. You see, like I was showing you this Bohrupi and this the rhymes and etc. But when he shifted to his own stories, even before Feluda, even before Shonku, he was writing many short stories, which were, I think, bit of ghost stories or macabre ones, and thrillers or horror stories. Very importantly, horror stories. Satyajit has dealt with so many horror and ghost stories. They were very, he loved those kind of themes. And naturally, he had to improvise. He had to create many more styles for each serious subjects. So that is why this rapid change, or this sudden change or gradual change in this realistic genre that is he created, and that was that was necessary, that was in demand, you see. And he knew how to bring illustrations, create illustrations which will be suitable for this kind of drawings. So before that, before Shonku, or before he took up pen himself, before he started writing himself, he never illustrated, he never had to illustrate these kind of stories. So that was a different period, different section of his story illustrations. And post Shonku, post Feluda, his style, his entire his body of work changed. That is about all.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Over to you, Srinath, please. Over to you, Srinath.
Srinath?
Yeah. Sorry, I was unaware that it was on mute. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for that wonderful session, as well as clearing all our doubts, sir. So before we form, I would now request Sri Avnish. Sri Avnish, you are there? Sri Avnish? Okay, just give me a minute, sir. Sri Avnish. Okay, Sri Avnish, 1 minute. You have made the co-host. Can you please unmute?
Sir?
Yes, you can unmute your video as well. I would request you, Master Sri Avnish, to formally end this session with the vote of thanks.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Good evening, Honorable Chairman. Sri M. V. Mutramalingam, sir. Our director, Sri M.V.M. Sasikumar sir, and our academic director, Srimati Geetanjali Sasikumar ma'am. Our chief guest and key speaker of today's session, Mr. Devashish Ted, our creative director of BKP Art Project, Mr. Murili Chirul, our chief curator of BKP Art Project, Mr. Anshuman Das Mehta, our head chief of Chitravati, Mr. Divish, our head of business and strategy, Mr. Srinath, our principals, heads of Velamal group of schools, staffs, students, and dear parents. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Debash for the enlightening session on Satyajit Race, filmmaker as illustrator, which showed us a different dimension of one of the greatest filmmakers of our times. My heartfelt gratitude to our chairman and all our directors for making a wonderful program available to us. A big thank you to the Chitravati unit for organizing and coordinating this stimulating event. The organizing committee has spared no effort to ensure the smooth functioning of this special session. My thanks to each and everyone in the committee for the arrangements and support. A wholehearted thank you to everyone present today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
One moment. Can I have that question once again, please? That just came to me.
What is so? Yes, sir. For sure, you can. Please.
I want to answer that also.
Yeah. So the question which came to you will not be visible for me. So can you just
somebody who actually put the question, can he or she come forward with the
can you
question
read
once
out the
again?
question or the name, sir, so that I can.
I couldn't follow. I only was going through the question itself. I think something to do with he or she wanted to know how one should start doing illustration and how.
So that's Ashish
kind of
Motwani. Ashish Motwani, can you please unmute?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Ashish,
was it your
sir,
question?
my question was, sir, what the elements one should keep in mind to become a great illustrator like Satyajit Da?
Satyajit Da, that's a good question. No, I'll tell you what. There are different ways, methods, which you have to apply one after another. You see, to start with, you have to cultivate yourself in drawing. You see, you have to practice drawing. You see, pure drawing. You have to develop strong, control over drawing, anatomical drawing. Second of all, you have to understand what exactly illustration means. A mere drawing, a mere painting can't be an illustration. Illustration has to follow the text. It has to interpret the text with a proper visual. It can be anything. It can be a small pin. It can be an elephant. But it has to suit with the subject. So that you have to keep in mind, and that is why you have to see, watch, follow regularly the illustrations of other illustrators, other famous illustrators. And then you would understand what the methods they have adopted, how they have kept up. So that is one thing. And then you have to understand the text. You have to understand the literature, understand literature. We have to know the inner thoughts, inner sentiments of the writer, of the theme, which you have to convert into a visual. If your emotion doesn't play properly, doesn't work properly, what will happen is that your illustration won't be that way, won't be very dramatic or very lively. So you have to portray along with the according to the text, according to the sentiment, emotion, drama, or whatever. It is very palpable. Literature is basically very palpable. It can touch your heart anytime. So should be your illustration. Your illustration, your drawing, your visual also must have that quality which will touch the reader's heart. So these are the things you have to realize gradually when you get more and more matured. You watch more and more illustrations, you read about it, you would definitely get how to proceed. You would be definitely get a passage. You will understand. You'll definitely get a route to follow. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
Thank
You're
you
much.
very
welcome.
much.
I
Thank
have
you.
enjoyed thoroughly this evening. Your institution, I think, has quite a reputation, and you have the faculty members and the students. They are all very bright, very accommodative, very creative, very involved. So I very much enjoyed the entire session. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you,
I
sir.
can take a
Thank you.
leave now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anshmanda.
Thank you. Thank you,
Anshmanda.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.